Tawat Nefar, everybody. Niune. Again, this is Brother Mudhuta. Look, I wanted to make this video because I just saw Louis Farrakhan. I think this is a video about in 2010 where he's with I forgot the brother's name. He's some kind of Princeton Cornell West, Michael Smiley, Michael Dyson, these token Negroes, and then Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, having a conference about Barack Obama. Louis Farrakhan is saying that, Barack Obama can't do it on his own. He's surrounded by Caucasians who want to support their power, their foreign colonial power structure. Now look, as an Awabian, I look at it as it's all for show. Louis Farrakhan's a good speaker. No one's going to take anything from him on that. I definitely support him in the fact that he speaks out against this, but he did actually bring up a solution that, why are we begging the Caucasian for things that we could do ourselves? But that's what slaves do. I know the master teacher, our leader of the United Nawabi Nation of Moors, Ahmadou Rakhta, said it's really a waste of time to even talk to these Negroes. They ain't gonna do nothing. They're gonna do nothing, absolutely nothing, which is a crime against a law of God, to not do anything for your people, just to sit there and give speeches. But I've never seen the Nation of Islam fight against Caucasians, never. And in their doctrine, they actually cursed people with nappy hair, with kingly hair. Said it's a curse that at first we were born with straight hair. But that don't make no sense. That also kind of signals like you don't even know your own genetics. You don't know where you came from when you start speaking like that. And Elijah Muhammad did believe that Fard Muhammad, who was a Caucasian, in his pictures, he had pictures of him in his house. He thought this man was God in the flesh. I know Dr. York has tried to defend Elijah Muhammad on that, but I can't, because the evidence is right there. He's a Caucasian. He was actually a criminal. Maybe Elijah Muhammad didn't know that, so we're not going to use that against him. But he was a Caucasian, and there's no way a Caucasian could be God. He could be Lucifer, like in Freemasonry and things like that. And the Kabbalah, that's Jewish. Jewish is Caucasian, basically. The original people never called themselves Jews because there's no J. J didn't even enter into English until the 15th century. If you look at Old English, there is no J in Old English words at all. At all. And there's no CH like ch in English at all. So what they've essentially done is, let me flip the camera, y'all could kind of see where the land is at. Well, you can see my house is kind of the Wabian land there, I guess. I don't know. But what I'm saying is basically you have to form your own. That's the only solution. Begging even Farrakhan, he was talking about we have to make them recognize No, you recognize your own power. And if you're a Muslim, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Saleh Allahu alayhi wa sallam, that you have the power to form your own, not a corporation. Nation of Islam is a 501c3 corporation in which the Caucasoid gave them power to form. We're not talking about that. We're talking about forming your, we're the first people here, if you're indigenous, you know what I'm saying? And we're not really looking at it that way. We look at it as a way of forming our own nation, which we've already done. The master teacher have already done that. I'm just kind of carrying out those actions and continuing the line of Nuwabians, or people who want to be Nuwabians who are Moors. You want to call that racist? Okay, I don't have a problem with that. You're Moors. You're a deeply hued people. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to use melanate, because melanate comes from the word melos in Greek, which means something bad. In English also, and also in Latin, niger, right? A nigger, niger. So I'm trying to train myself not to use these words for ma'urawo, you know. So when we use the medu wall, which is words, we have to stay away from their words, you know. And if we want to use their language, then we got to use the words that describe us in good light. Black, dark, melanate, those are all not good words. Those are all not good words. Look at the etymology of those words and you'll see that the words I speak are true. We have to get on a level where we're comfortable being ourselves. The conscious community, that's not it. That's not it. It was a stage. It was a stage in black people's evolution to become Moors, but that's it. It's a stage. It's not permanent. And plus, they're kind of stuck, and they all hate on each other. You know what I mean? Like, black people have come to the spell of Kingu is real, what the master teacher speaks of, and black people hate each other. Hopefully this is not true amongst Moors. I haven't seen it amongst Moors. Moors may debate, but I don't think there's any hate. But I think when the conscious community who still call themselves Negro, Black, and Colored, when they debate Moors, I think they do hate Moors because they hate themselves at the end of the day. And they have no enterprises, no land, no resources, just niggerness. Which is not correct under the laws of nature, the nature of nature, which also the master teacher wrote those books too. Under the I don't know what you call it, the Nomer, under the Nomer of Afro Unu. Another thing I want to address is this guy named Hotep Amun is trying to steal the ancient mystical order of Melchizedek's under Omni-U. He's still using Greek words because he's a Negro. And a Negro can only go so far spiritually, because when you talk about spirituality, you still must have understanding. You have to have understanding you must be very smart to be spiritual. Very smart to understand spiritual concepts and to be taught by a guide. The Al-Mahdi, in Arabic. To be taught by a spiritual guide and how to spiritually live your life is something you must profess, and it's something you must study hard in. It's just like a university, probably even more than a university. You must study hard and focus all your energy on. You're not just gonna go watch a YouTube video on Facebook and be spiritual. That's not. It's not meant for that medium. So, for those who think, and I see a lot of black people doing this, which doesn't surprise me because, black people are just totally lost at this point. Those who are kept to their tribal roots, like the Aniawea, Cherokee, these things we understand. If you have any connection to that root, you understand these things, and you're able to move forward. And without rich, poor, that won't matter in your spiritual life. It won't matter. Though to be spiritual, you don't have to be poor. That doesn't, there's no rule that says you have to be poor to be spiritual. So I think people who say that are misguided leaders who are telling other people that, especially in Christianity as a whole. You know, they're telling people you have to die to go to heaven. No, you don't have to die to go to heaven. You could experience heaven right here on earth if you're spiritually adapt, if you have spiritual senses. I can't go into spiritual senses here because you have to be part of the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, which is what the wannabe Hotep Amun is trying to do with Omni U. So I would advise you to stay away from that. I've had talks with the brother before, and he doesn't seem to be good-hearted. So that's pretty much what Murhutha, that's me, Murhutha Hedokayu, has to say about, you know, what I seen with Louis Farrakhan and the brother Hotep Amun posting the video about Omni. He's also using the color green, which he learned from the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, which he failed in because he wanted to start his own thing before learning the true understanding or overstanding of what the master teacher was trying to bring. You see a lot of brothers trying to start their own organizations and things like that. But at the same time, it's not needed because the Imam is there. There's no need to create a different organization because you're not Melchizedek, you're not Marduk. You're not Marduk. You know, you're not. And so I heard the brothers practicing the Vedanta religion, which people miscall Hinduism, but Hinduism is Sindh. Hindu, Sindhu, the Sindhu people. And Sindhu is actually translated into India. So it's still Sindhu. Those are the Sindhu people. And so people don't know what they're talking about. I know the master teacher also used the word. He used it because that he knows that's what you're all familiar with. But the people are Sindhu people. I know because I used to be in a relationship with a Sindhu female for 8 years. So I know about that. So at the end of the day, we got to get serious about, you can say freedom. It really ain't freedom, though. Freedom is a concept by the Caucasoid. We come from patriarchs, matriarchs. We come from messiahs. You know, the Caucasoid Jew didn't know nothing about a messiah. Messiah is from ancient Tamaray, which we call the Messiah, which would be a high priest anointed with hippopotamus oil. They don't know nothing about that. They just made up their own religion based off the knowledge that they think they got from us in ancient Tamaray, in which ancient Tamarayans also traveled to America. Ramesses III, I have a book on it. And I have some of the blood of Ramesses III in me. So I'm physical evidence that they traveled, right? And it wasn't because of the slave trade that we all traveled on business ventures and to trade in the Caribbean. If you read a book called the first Americans were Africans, which doesn't go back far enough because we were here once the continent split. That's how old Moors or Morenos are. Not blacks. Blacks were invented in the 15th century. So when the Caucasoid says black people have no history, technically he's correct because he just created you. If you call yourself black, he just created you. If we're talking about if I'm in the 1500s, he just created you as negros. The Spanish took away Moor. It used to be black or Moor, right? Moor recognizes that you're one of the first people on this planet, right? Black says we're erasing all that, and now you're just a piece of property, right, with no rights. So, and if for black people that ain't worth dying for, then your life is worth nothing. Your life is worth nothing. Because I hear emotional statements from blacks like babies. Oh, when I say, oh, the word black, they say it means beautiful, but I don't see that in the dictionary. And they're like, F that dictionary. Is that really going to solve your problem mentally, spiritually? You speak in the English language. That is the demarcation of the language that you speak. You didn't create English, so you don't control it. The people in England do. So this is nothing new. You know what I'm saying? Black people in worse shape than ever. At least those who were enslaved had slave quarters. They had fans, they had beds. You got single black women out here who got to stay in a shelter. That's worse than a slave quarter. It is wage slavery. So America never ended slavery. The world never ended slavery. There's always going to be some form of slavery. You need to join this right here. Okay, the United Nawabi Nation of Moors, because though some blacks may have property, money, all that gonna go away. You're gonna lose that in the next generation. It's gone. Look what's happening to Puff. Puff is worth like $2 billion, but he had to play the devil's game, and now all that's gonna go. The next generation, his grandchildren won't have none of that wealth. They're gonna take it all from him. Rightfully so, because he was doing some nasty stuff. He joined the devil. Jay-Z too. Jay-Z about to go down. I heard he killed one of my favorite rappers, Big L from Harlem. Peace to that more. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, black people are totally, look at what's happening in Chicago. It all goes back to way of life. Black people have no way of life, no tribe, no language, no land. And they willingly gave this up to try to become a Caucasian, like the Boule. Boule ain't the only sellouts. They're not the only sellouts. These people, there's no way the Caucasoid can succeed without the participation of Moors or blacks. Decrepit Moors, what we call blacks. There's no way they can succeed. I was watching on Hakaz News. It's a YouTube channel that shows like old footage from like the 50s, 60s, 70s in the black community. And I guess in New York, in Bensonhurst, an Italian neighborhood, there was an incident maybe where an Italian killed a Moor, a black person. There's a distinction there. And black people ran to the news media. The news media, oh, they're hurting blacks, because the news media in New York is usually Democratic. So Democrats will use anything. They'll suck the life out of black people to push their political agenda and their power. And they got Al Sharpton to help them do it, and Jesse Jackson, two Negroes who have no culture. So they're going to sell out to the biggest bidder to get more power. And unfortunately, Al Sharpton sacrificed black people in their dignity to walk through an Italian neighborhood in New York, Bensonhurst, and scream, "I am somebody." I am somebody, and I'm adding on to this, but I don't know who the hell I is. At least say I am black, or I am Aniawea. I am somebody? What type of sense does that make? You sound like a damn fool walking around a neighborhood with Italians who calling you niggas and everything else. Get the hell out of our neighborhood. Somebody. Nigga, you don't even know who the hell you are. Marching? Get the heck. And black people following it. This is why black people don't have any respect across the world. That's exactly why. And Noble Drew Ali tried to tell you ignorant black ass, you're a Moor. He tried to inform you about who you are, but for black people, it don't register. So unfortunately, you're left in the situation in which you started in. You started black, you're going to end up black. That's why there's more black people in the projects now than ever in 2024. Projects is temporary living. But the government said, black people don't want to leave the projects. The black woman even pushing their man out to get this money. So now we're going to make it where you can't have a man in the house. We ain't going to give you the money, can't have the man. So that's the government's plan to separate black families, right? Because they have no culture to keep it stuck together like glue. So your culture would dictate would over dictate and overrule what the government is telling you. So if the so-called black woman has to abide by these government rules, she's gonna say, well, forget that. I want my man in the house to have a strong family. But if you ain't got no culture, no rules, you know what I'm saying? You're gonna be like, oh, okay, no, push him. I'm all about that bag. You know, black women all about the bag. The nigga all about the bag. So what the nigga gonna do, since the Caucasoid is his creator, he always gonna bow down to his creator, and that's the Caucasoid for black people, the English Caucasoid. That's why we're speaking Creole English today, in the English language ain't even pure. So the Caucasoid don't even know his own language. You know, he trying to be something he not. He trying to be the English Caucasoid, trying to be a Greek and a Roman. But he ain't no Greek or no Roman. The Romans ruled over the English in the 4th and 5th centuries. They didn't respect them like that. And none of the Germanic tribes. Rome saw themselves as something completely different from an English. And the Greeks saw themselves as completely different from any Germanic speaking peoples. But then when the English, they want to make this white thing, the Greeks. No. There ain't no Greeks and Romans with you. See, this is the game that they play, right? The Greeks and the Romans respected Egypt, I'm trying not to say dark, because dark's a negative thing too. So we're going to say deeply hued Moors in Tamaray. They looked to them for their knowledge and wisdom, not to Germanic English and Germany and no, they didn't look to them. They saw them as savages. They saw them as niggas. You know what I'm saying? So once you go back and you start reading about eyewitness testimony from these people, you'll see the real truth and how they're trying to cover it up, even amongst their own race. Because race is a new concept. The Greeks didn't see race. Yeah, they seen that we were a hell of a lot different from them because we were different genetic, right? But they embraced us more because we had the wisdom and knowledge. And even in the land of Sindhu, they embraced those people too. When the Greeks went in there and they were melanated, they weren't Moors. They were deeply hued, right? But they weren't Moors, right? They were of another race of people, the Sindhu people. So what I'm saying is the whole thing with Farrakhan, everybody's totally lost. Everybody's playing some kind of political game of the Caucasoid. Unfortunately, Louis Farrakhan is too, because he is a Mason. I don't know if he's Boule, but he's a Mason. He's definitely a Mason. But Elijah Muhammad was also a Mason, who cursed black people for having curly hair and praised Fard Muhammad, who is not the original Muhammad, but he was set up by the government to control the Nation of Islam. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, what do you have left? You have nothing. Black people have nothing. But that's the way the devil set it up. Louis Farrakhan ain't gonna fight against no Caucasoids, bro. He ain't gonna do it. And if what I'm saying is wrong, Prove me wrong. But the Nation of Islam will beat up a nigga quick. They'll beat up a nigga quick, especially if you were heavily hued more. They'll beat your ass up quick. They'll beat you up quick. But let them go after a Caucasoid. They ain't never done it in their history, the whole organization. So, even I went through race wars in California with Caucasoids. It was a black Mexican white thing in California. We went at it, homie. We went at it. Ain't none of this, we gonna give a nice, nah, nigga, we knife, fist, everything, homie. We ain't going down like that. And it was on some gangbang shit, Blood and Crip 13, but still, we ain't going down like that, bro. Just giving speeches. At least I knocked the white boy out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even really a tough dude. But when it came to fighting for my race, it's in California. You think Bensonhurst was some shit in California, in New York in the 80s. Come to Cali in the early 90s and the late 80s, there was a race war going on in all high schools across Southern California. If you was a punk, you was gonna get effed up. You was gonna get effed up. I'm telling you right now. And it wasn't just LA, it was the burbs, San Diego. I don't know if it's San Diego. I'm not from San Diego. But in LA County, if you weren't ready to fight, you was gonna get picked off. You was gonna get picked off. And the cops weren't coming to help you. You was gonna get picked, whether in the burbs or in the big town of LA, you was gonna get picked off of me. You was gonna get picked off. So I don't know about down south and East Coast dudes, but in California, that shit was real. That was real. There was a real race war going on, started by the gangs. You know, you see a Mexican person, just shoot him if he was black. Or if you're a Mexican person, you see a black person, you shoot him. Mexican person, see a white person, shoot him. Shoot him. Just shoot him on sight. Just shoot. And that shit ain't cool, man. So you don't know what type of war you're into. Because half of y'all ain't never been to Cali. You know what I'm saying? We're in Arizona right now. And I don't promote none of that stuff because I'm not a gangster. I'm Nuwaubian. Nuwaubians can be gangsters, but that would be very shunned upon, and you'd probably be kicked out of the community. Probably, most likely, yes. We don't really deal with that type of stuff, and the whole evilness about it. But what I am trying to emphasize is, you better be ready to fight. You better be ready to fight. Spiritually, mentally, and physically. You better be ready to fight for the nation. But if you're black, you're cool. I guess you just kind of just go with the flow. Whatever the Caucasoid says, you just do it. You know. He gave you a holiday, Juneteenth. What is that? June? Some shit the United Nuwaubian Nation of Moors does not recognize, but the Caucasoid government, the colonial government of England, called the United States, gave that to blacks. Hopefully that'll make the slaves happy. Right. So anyway, I know I had a lot to say on this, kind of ranting, but I feel like it's important, to get the message out. Rono, things are not going correctly for blacks. You would think after Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Nation of Islam, all these things, that things would be better. Affirmative action. That video from Hikaz Films, you would think they were talking about affirmative action in the 90s, but affirmative action has actually worked against blacks and not for blacks, right? A lot of Asians have taken advantage of affirmative action in universities, in which the Supreme Court just knocked down. Say you cannot have race quotas for state-run universities. And Asians took advantage of it big time. And they were smart to do so. Because blacks are too dumb to take advantage when they've been given an advantage by the Caucasoid, by the English Caucasoid. They're too dumb to even take advantage of that. So I had a video a couple of weeks ago on Right Knowledge Radio. Does being black work? Does it work? I conclude that it does not. Because you have no land, no culture, no language, no dress, no nothing. Hip hop is not culture. It's not a way of life. It comes from a way of life, but hip hop raps in English or the nationality in which you're from. Hip hop itself doesn't have any culture. It has activities, graffiti, breakdance. I love hip hop, don't get me wrong, but it's not a culture. There's no hip hop nation. There's no hip hop nation. Sorry, KRS-One. There's no hip hop nation. That can never take part, that can never overtake your genetics as being a Moor and speaking your own language. That hip hop does not take precedence over that. But only a confused nigga would think that way. Someone who doesn't know who they are, they don't know where they came from, they don't know their way of life, their ancient way of life, they don't know their language. And I wasn't born with my language either. My first language is English, but it's not my indigenous language. So that's why we strive to learn Nuwabic, right? And I don't know Aniuwea language. I would have to really do some research into getting into that. And I'm really looking for a Cherokee woman too. So if y'all find an Aniuwea woman, so if you find that, I would like that. But anyway, this is the Afarut Muhuta Hirokayu on my own personal channel. I guess this is a vlog, they call it. And peace and love, Wadu, and that's it. Wadu.